everybody. Welcome to our roundtable discussion. We're really excited to be presenting on behalf of the Canadian Women's Brass Collective, and we have a bunch of exciting faces on the screen here, and I'm just going to let everyone go around and just briefly introduce themselves. The topic that we're going to be covering today that we came up with after initially deciding, okay, we're going to talk about goal setting. And then we said, well, let's talk about something that is really specific that applies to everyone right now. And that is that our goals right now are moving targets. So how can you possibly stay goal-oriented during this pandemic? I guess I'll just start us off since I'm talking already. My name is Vanessa Fralick. I'm originally from St. Catharines, Ontario, and I play associate principal trombone in the Toronto Symphony.
I can go second. My name is Lauren Helmer, and I am a high school teacher and band director from Kitchener-Waterloo. I play second trombone in the Stratford Symphony Orchestra, and I just recently retired from the Canadian Armed Forces after playing trombone with them for 14 years. Welcome.
All right. I'm Megan Hodge. I'm a freelancer in Toronto. I teach at the University of Toronto. And just to pile on from where Lauren said, I'm in the Canadian Armed Forces with the Queen's Own Rifles of Canada, director of music there. So love to represent that. So.
Yeah. Hillary?
Yeah. So I'm Hillary Sims. I'm from Torbay, Newfoundland and Labrador. I am a professional student, and I am currently doing my third degree, my doctorate of musical arts at Northwestern University.
Cool. Audrey, you came back. Yay.
Woohoo.
I'm Audrey. I'm from Edmonton. Sorry, was I supposed to say more? I got kicked out, but I'm back in. Okay, great.
Good.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Great.
And I'm Rachel Thomas. I play second trombone in the Kitchener-Waterloo Symphony, and I teach at Laurier University.
Amazing.
And she's a great teacher if you want to, study with her. Been there, done that.
Well, I didn't get to have you as a private student, but you were awesome in the trombone choir. Lauren Strong.
That's right. Maiden name.
Maiden name.
So our number one reason that we came up with for how to stay motivated in the pandemic, we decided it all fit under the title of falling in love again. Does anyone want to get us started with what that means?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind starting it off. So I guess one of the things I would like to personally acknowledge before we kind of get into like all of these, goals and how we move forward in our practice. I don't know, raise your hand if you stopped practicing when the pandemic started. Like I stopped. I did not play my instrument. And I think a lot of it had to do with, as a student, a lot of our practice is prescribed to us. It's a teacher telling us, you have an audition coming up, you have a masterclass performance, you have all of these things, and you're constantly trying to get to the next goal. You're trying to get to the next level. So when, the world stopped, we were all there. All these goals kind of stopped for me as well. Everything that I was pursuing, all the performances I had coming up were gone. So I just kind of thought, well, shag it. Why would I practice for the things that aren't there? Yes, I said shag it. You can all laugh. I'm from Newfoundland. But yeah, to that note though, it took me a while to kind of remember why I practice in the first place. If nothing's coming up, if I have none of these goals to get to achieve, why am I doing it? And it kind of reminded me of a specific teacher a couple of years ago. I was being a brat in my lessons, and I had totally lost my confidence in my playing, and I was ready to kind of stop playing the trombone. And he ended up confronting me in the lesson because I just was not really doing what I was supposed to be doing. And he basically was just like, you don't have to do this. And I said, I don't want to do it anymore. I think I'm going to drop out. And he's like, but you don't have to do this if you don't want to do it. But if you're going to do it, you have to love it. And I remember thinking, I was like, well, I didn't say I didn't love it. And then I went home in my big old stubborn stupor and was like, well, I'll prove him that I love this. And I decided to create goals on how to prove that I'm good and I can practice and I guess prove that I still love the instrument and make these goals. But when the pandemic kind of hit, it made me realize that I had to, find practice goals that centered around me loving my instrument again. I almost had to renew my vows to the trombone and why I practiced in the first place. So for me, after a couple months, I ended up just playing music that I loved, and I sounded like crap because I hadn't played for a while. But it was mostly a lot of Disney tunes, a lot of Broadway stuff, a lot of Newfoundland folk songs, to be honest. And it was just playing what I love and doing different things like that kind of got me back into practicing. That's kind of my personal story of what I had to do. And then through that, it was a lot easier to find different goals. So I would play a piece that I wanted to play. And then through that, I'd be like, oh, wow, my articulation sucked. And then I would kind of focus on different goals, and they'd be really small. But that's kind of how I started it. I don't know what you guys did.
I just want to say that I'm going to jump in for any of you educators out there, or high schoolers or middle schoolers, or anyone who's, a student in this, because although I do play the trombone professionally, I kind of have a little background knowledge on there, and hopefully some tips for you guys. The meaningful goals things that Hillary hit on there is so key for you high schoolers out there, because you're not going to play as well. You haven't touched your horn. Maybe some of you aren't even playing your instruments right now. I know in our board, we're not even allowed to touch our instruments during the day while we're at school. No one plays their wind instruments. No one sings in Ontario. I'm not sure what the other provinces are doing. It's very different around Canada. Maybe anyone else can jump in on there. But setting those meaningful goals for you guys in high school is so key. You know that you're not going to be great, so just own it. So start at the bottom. Start where you think that you've overachieved or achieved while you were still in school in non-pandemic times. But practice backwards, as I would say. Play some less challenging rep. Play some scales or some studies that you've already mastered. Maybe you just need to rework those on your own time, and play what you like in your own capacity. Play some oldies, play some pop music, play some things that you've heard on the radio. We heard Audrey in the last segment there riffing on some was it Bruno Mars or somebody in
the answer's always Beyonce from here on out from me.
Well, perfect. There you go. So start riffing on the radio, guys. We know you love to listen to music. So I love that meaningful goals thing, Hillary. Also, before we go on, if you have any questions, please write in the comments. I will be moderating the comments. So we'll throw some questions out to the presenters here. Thanks.
Yeah, and Audrey, you sounded fantastic in that class. It was great to hear you play. So if any of you are just joining us now, please go back later and watch the earlier class with Audrey. It was really great. Have any of you heard of this goal setting strategy called WHOOP? It's an acronym WHOOP. I've just been reading about it lately, and it's kind of perfect for this time and place, because the acronym is basically wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. So the wish is some wish that you have for the future. Basically, it's the goal. Man, I wish I could get into the University of Toronto. And the outcome is you sitting down and really picturing what that outcome would look like for your life. Thinking about the details of that and really visualizing it. But then the difference here between this kind of goal setting and traditional goal setting is that you basically plan on that there are going to be obstacles. So you think of what those obstacles might be, and they're usually something personal, maybe you have performance anxiety. Maybe you have a fear. Maybe you're afraid of Megan and you're afraid of seeing her at the audition. You shouldn't be. Megan's very friendly and nice. But maybe you fear that you're not good enough. Maybe you just know that you're going to get sucked into watching too much Netflix. So you think about what all of these obstacles could be that we all deal with, and then you plan for them. You plan, okay, so if I do feel afraid of playing in front of other people, I'm going to remember that they all want me to to play my best. So when that does happen, when I know that obstacle is going to come up, I'm going to remember that I can just think, they want me to do my best. If you encounter the obstacle of that you get stuck binging your favorite show on Netflix, you have a plan. You say, okay, I'm going to let myself watch 2 episodes and I'm going to trade off by then practicing for 20 minutes. So you basically plan for any of these obstacles, and studies have shown that this increases the likelihood of you actually meeting your original goal in the end. And I think that's a really interesting way to go about it. So not plan that your path to your goal is going to be perfect, plan that there's going to be some setbacks, but if you have a plan in place, you're much more likely to get there eventually.
I think we were also talking about, kind of to go along with a lot of things that you guys have said, falling in love with your practicing. Another idea that came out in our discussions was journaling, right? To have a personal and easy way to chronicle, I guess, for lack of a better word, your progress, because it can be a simple thing, but you write down the tempo of what you did on Monday, and then on Friday you're like, oh, I can do it way faster now. It's an easy way of little goals that keep giving you a bit of oomph, like a bit of congratulations every once in a while. I find that can really help, and doesn't matter what level you're at. I remember going back to journaling at the beginning of the pandemic when I was still trying to practice because I was trying to get better at my double, which is bass trombone, right? Because I was like, oh, I finally have time to do all this stuff. And I found that journaling helped me, keep getting better, keep doing some goals that really helped me get through that. So
I have a bit of a different approach, which is I didn't really make time to practice for a very long time because I was gigging quite a bit before the pandemic, 3 or 4 gigs a week at least, plus rehearsals. And I found myself always using my personal time to prepare for other people's gigs and learning other people's material and whatever. And it had been that way for years, so that when the pandemic hit, I was like, I've got no gigs to prepare for. And I didn't play because I had no idea what to play because I had been so removed from personal practice for so long. Like, I just considered myself in shape because I was playing often and doing gigs often. I was like, nah, practice, whatever. But then when the pandemic came around, I'm like, I got no gigs, I got nothing, who am I? I realized that it gave me an opportunity to be writing my own again, and not writing for any specific project, not arranging for any specific client, not doing anything for anybody other than myself, which had not been an option for a few years, because how blessed am I that I was very busy for the last few years, but had ignored all of the parts of music that I like, because what I like really wasn't paying. So it gave me an opportunity to practice the ways that I was telling those students I practice, which is just like, go listen to a song that gives me comfort, not anything that's going to be technically challenging or is going to increase any proficiency I have on the instrument, but just music. Like, listening to music and playing it is supposed to be a cathartic, joyful experience. So how is it that over the last few years I had reduced it to a job? So the pandemic, I used that time to connect with comfort music, pop music. I replayed and would just put on headphones and I would replay because and you mentioned this, Hillary, I had like entire musical books because I'd done a few runs. So I would just sit down and play like the musical along with the music front to back, just because I could, just to have something to play. And then remember, like, oh God, I miss playing musicals. But never with any attachment of growth. Like, there was no goal setting. The goal was just like, I'm supposed to like this. So if I like it, it shouldn't be a job. This shouldn't be a goal. I should just reconnect with all the things I love. Goal setting for me wasn't the whole issue. The issue was finding what I enjoyed again. And then there's no need to set a timeline if it's joyful. There's no need to like, journaling's wonderful. Instead of journaling, though, I would record myself and be like, oh, I like the way I sound on that tune. Or I like that lick I played on the second chorus when I was trying to do this. Or, hey, I really like my sound when I'm messing with those intervals. And it would just be reflection, comfort work, because that's all because we were all in a giant state of grief. So what I was searching for was comfort, joy, all the things that were lacking because of the pandemic.
Yeah, like on that note, I did pretty much a similar thing. Instead of playing trombone to start off with, I would actually just play the piano and sing along to it, which is something that I totally neglected and I forgot that I loved. And then it also led me to arranging more and just doing things that were completely outside of my instrument and outside of what I was, doing before this. So through that, it was like, oh yeah, like I actually love doing this. Like why I should just apply this again to my instrument and see where it can take me. It wasn't really goal oriented, like you said, to get better or to achieve anything. It was just digging myself and loving my sound and trying to do more things, right?
Yeah. And it's so hard when you take a lot of time off because you kind of know that you're going to come back to it and probably not sound that great. It won't sound or feel good. And, and it's hard to think ahead to, times when you sounded really great. So I think, we're piecing together a whole bunch of really great ideas here about how to approach this stuff. And I think one thing to keep in mind is sometimes you have to come in really slowly on it, not have really high expectations. And in terms of how you're going to approach, just the length of time, even just kind of do baby steps and just say, okay, tomorrow I'll do 20 minutes, set a goal like that, maybe 20 minutes a day for a week. And then you'd be surprised at actually how in shape then you can add time to that, and just being easy on yourself too. Like if it's not sounding great, like you guys had some fantastic ideas of what to do when you don't think you're sounding great, which is to listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Get those headphones on. Yeah.
And judgment-free playing is very important in jazz playing too, when we get so bogged down by, it's just the right note. Like, who cares? Put your headphones on. Does it feel good? That's it. Like, is your face getting responsive? Those are my goals, just to play without judgment again.
And students do the same thing. As a teacher, I can't tell you enough how important it is to just listen to yourself. Please put your headphones on and just know that you're going to sound terrible and own it. And we all do it. And I hate putting headphones on. I hate listening to myself sing. I hate hearing myself talk. I hate hearing myself play the trombone, but you got to do it. And that could be one of your small goals. Just, do that. We all do it.
And it really is a challenge, to get started. But I do find that every time I finally get myself there, it's a little bit easier once I'm started. It's interesting though to hear that you guys all had this experience. Well, a couple of you had this experience of getting into the music that you loved. Because I felt like before the pandemic, I was getting to play a lot of the music that I loved. And so for me, still a year later, I have a hard time just sitting down and listening to one of my favorite symphonies because it makes me tear up, really. It's a sad thing for me right now to miss playing that music. And I feel like I'm still going through that grieving process because we still don't know when we'll be able to be back in a concert hall. So I really just kind of actually turned away from big ensemble music and tried to use the first bit of time to do a lot of the really boring maintenance work that I feel like once you get working and really busy, whether it's with school or with work, that you don't always have the time for. And it's been a bit of a blessing in disguise because I think when you're doing that every day and then also not having to go in and do a high pressure performance situation at the same time, you can end up improving a lot faster. Because I think when we play under pressure, we all get set back a little bit. We revert to some old habits. But if you're always playing in this comfortable, just playing in my living room, no pressure. Nobody cares if I just do 10 minutes or an hour. Nobody cares how good I sound. For me, it was just like you said, that little milestone of okay, I picked up my horn today. That's all I can do right now. So, and just going easy on yourself, you see a lot of people, and we were going to talk about how there's a lot of great ideas that can help you stay motivated, like the 100 days of practice hashtag. But sometimes that can backfire for you, right? You see somebody else out there doing it and you're like, oh, I'm not doing that. It can seem really hard to get into. But really, I think if you can just even have not even pick up your horn, but just picture yourself picking up your horn in a week or whenever you think you'll be ready, then you might have a better chance once you do pick it up.
We have one question in the chat from Doug Rosenthal. He would like to know more about journaling and some categories and topics you guys have used that have some meaning.
Hi, Doug. I'm not going to answer this question, but I just wanted to say hi.
I guess I can start it off since I do it. So I started doing it when I just got out of school, because I didn't, I think everyone has a bit of a period of time when they have no idea how to be out of school, right? And so it was a way for me to just keep track of everything. The way I teach it to students anyways, is I'll tell them to list all of their pieces that they're working on at the top, and then actually divide it into the days of the week, the journal, and then start assigning pieces to those days so that you're covering everything. And you can even give numerical, 1 out of 10 on how good they're sounding, so I'm a 3 on Saison 3, and I'm a 9. What would I be a 9 on? Hungarian March, And so I would put Hungarian March in there way less than I would put Saison 3 or something like that. So it's kind of a way to stay organized if you want to be that rigid about it. But even if you're not, like I said, I used it for doubling, and I would just put down anything that I was trying that would work. And I would kind of say what worked about it, just so that I was kind of remembering everything and progressing all the time. I hope that helps.
Just to piggyback on that, I do that because I remember you telling me about it, I think like a year ago. But there's for me in my practice, especially like, I don't know, a couple months ago when I was still really out of shape, or at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of my practice was listening. So I actually, in my practice journal, I had a portion of my day was actually dedicated to just finding an artist, and it was most likely never a trombone player, to listen to style and listen to, honestly, like vibrato and fun things. And it was just to kind of get me back into this mindset of listening and listening critically, and then finding something that I could latch onto within that listening. And then for my practice journal the next day, that quality I would try to incorporate that into my practice. So that was just kind of something that I would put into my journal.
I'm curious, for those of you that do journal, I'm not a big practice journaler, but do you include a lot of non-performance notes in your journal, like where you're at mental health wise as you're practicing, and how that relates to how your practice went?
Yes, actually, I tend to write mine more like a diary journal, more about how I'm feeling about it. I mean, I'll remark on like some physical aspects, like, my chops felt good, or they got swollen, or they're unresponsive in this, and that way I look like what are patterns am I seeing, in what's affecting my daily practice. This is when I was practicing a lot for auditions, so it was really, and I'm trying to work on some stuff embouchure wise, like trying to keep some corner action and some real center focus. But I also write about like how I was feeling about my session, and then it was just more therapeutic about like in terms of just getting it out. Okay, that sucked today, and I really felt frustrated about this one excerpt, and it just kind of, it's a way to get it out. So yeah, that would be way less technical, except the part about noting the physical aspect, that I could go back and say, oh, 2 weeks ago it was like this, and last week it wasn't, and yeah, that's all.
I don't journal. I don't read books either, but in the same vein, I would take a lot of recordings of myself, and my partner is good at, he does a lot of sound engineering, and he got sick of me always asking him to do it, so he showed me how to use GarageBand and gave me a sound interface so that I could record myself playing things, playing different quartets with myself. I printed off the Round Midnight. Who arranged it? Come on, there's a Round Midnight quartet arrangement. Do you know which one I'm talking about? Oh my God, it's right over there. Hold on.
The one with the really hard bass trombone solo?
It was sitting on a record player. Okay.
I think you mean really fun bass trombone solo.
I only know the band charts. Sorry.
Anyway, it's a great brass quartet arrangement of Round Midnight, arranged by Slidehampton, and it does have a great bass trombone solo off the top, and like crazy range. Like there's like this F in the lead bone part. So I recorded myself playing all the parts, and then I would just like listen back to myself playing a quartet, and I'd be like, I suck at my low range. Like now I can focus on my low range, or I would be like, you know, just find different things to critique, but I mean, it's by myself, right? So then I would record it again and try to improve the bass trombone part. So it's not quite journaling with words, but it is reflective work that I'm just doing on my own. I'm not like sending it to anybody it's not like a demo for anything. It's not to be judged by anybody else's ears but myself. And which leads me to
I was going to do it for you, but that's awesome.
which leads me to like, this pandemic gave me an opportunity to really get to know some of the technology that's out there that enables you. And for any commercial musician or, God, I'm not going to speak for any genre anymore. For myself, I play with people, right? Like that. And that's like the whole fun of music for me is getting to see people I know, getting to make music with them, get to converse, you know, not necessarily with words, but like jazz is so interactive that once I was unable to play with other people, I was like, oh my God, what's the point? So I just learned to play with myself using this technology, you know, and it's not the same thing remotely, but it was fun. And it was very fun. At the end of a day, I would have a completed project. I could say, I recorded this quartet, good for me. And then I could go to bed knowing like, you did one thing today, Audrey. You may not have showered, but you did record the trombone quartet. So
Excellent.
I have that bar. It's not low, but it's not very high. Anyway, let's talk about technology, ladies.
Oh,
Well, I think Lauren should talk about this because this is something that's been like for anyone in school right now, teachers and students, it's been a huge thing.
Oh man, this is huge. And I just want to say learning new technology has never been my forte. My husband is like a technological genius and he just laughs whenever I have to come up with things for tech. And this has been huge for educators and for students. We've had to learn so many new platforms and so many new programs and applications, and they're just getting thrown at us. But thankfully, the technology options that are available to us as students and educators and performers has come such a long way since the start of the pandemic even. It's been quite a challenge finding the most authentic ways of interacting with each other. And I'm going to be honest, playing on these applications and on these programs and platforms is not very authentic because we don't really have a way yet of performing live with each other that is super reliable. It's just not there yet. We have some great programs and they do work. And I know that some of these people are using them already on the panel. But I'll talk about some of the tech options that are available. I'm not going to go into great detail because obviously you can go find them on YouTube. But things that we've been using myself and in school that I've heard of and that my colleagues are using. Upbeat Music is a great app that you can use as an educator or as a performer. It's great for creating interactive lessons and playing in small ensembles, for educators to hear their students and give feedback in real time. And I know, Vanessa, you've been playing around a little bit with Upbeat. Could you give a little bit of a background on what you've done with it?
I haven't done very much with it. We've just used it a bit with our trombone quartet chamber group at U of T. It's a nice little program that I know has been used to great success by some, our friend David Leach down in Ann Arbor with his big high school program. So he uses it to have full sectionals and rehearsals, and students can, you kind of are in like a Zoom situation, but it syncs up the time lag. So you can have a little bit of flexibility to actually rehearse. So it's still not like playing with each other, but you get a little bit more of the social interaction because you're kind of in this chat as you're doing it.
Now, if you do want to play, again, that was called Upbeat Music and it's an application. The second one that I wanted to touch base on, I know Rachel uses it with Laurier, is Jamulus. And it's an open source software. It's the only one that I personally know. I'm sure there's more out there, but the only one I've come across that lets people play together in real time. Am I correct with that, Rachel?
Yes, that's right. I used it in my trombone ensemble at school, and it was really, really fun. It took a while to set up. The students are good at the tech, so you let them tell you what to do, which buttons to push and what not to. But yeah, it was really satisfying to play something together.
Are these programs
So-
free, or is it like your school's bought a subscription and student membership, all that?
I'm
Correct.
pretty sure that one is not free, or I'm not sure actually, because they have to buy different levels, like because all of us have to have access to it. Like we have studio, so I think that's the expensive part. I think an individual could probably get it, but anybody can search that stuff up for sure.
Most of the really intensive software is pay or has levels of payment, as Rachel mentioned there. So be ready to pay. At this point in the pandemic, people have paid for some great programs, and we can still use them because the subscription lasts. And some of them have become free during the pandemic. And if you can still catch on board all that free stuff, go for it. I know Smart Music was free at the very beginning of the pandemic. I'm not sure if it was right now. And it has many applications, and we've been using it in our board, and a lot of other boards have been using it. That's Smart Music. And for me and for my kids, what I found great about it was it pretty much has every single band repertoire, solos, studies, their lesson books is all uploaded onto this program, which is phenomenal. So they can use this software to download their parts and practice on their own time. And then they can record themselves playing, or you can record yourself playing if you're a performer and you want to play, you want it in your, ensemble at school, at U of T, wherever, your university. You can download your parts and you can play it to the software, record yourself playing, and it will find your issues, gives you feedback on tempo and articulation and tuning and rhythm and all these important things. And then if you're in high school or middle school, it will send your recording of yourself to your teacher, and they can, listen to you and give you feedback on that as well. So Smart Music has been a huge, phenomenal piece of technology that we've been using in our board. So there's some tech.
Yeah.
Also,
Definitely thinking outside the box.
Heck yes.
Oh no, just GarageBand is built into all Apple products, and once it was explained to me how to use it, it's pretty user friendly as well. At the very least, you can share files with one another and build recordings remotely, and that sounds fairly decent, That's it.
Yeah, GarageBand is actually really easy to use. It was one of these ways where I was able to play with myself, but then at the same time, think outside of the box and, kind of figure out. Sorry, I'm loving Audrey dance in the corner.
Well, I was going to say, Hillary, you made some really fantastic videos over the pandemic. Like, how did you get motivated to do that? And what did you have to learn to make those happen?
I had to learn a lot. Technology is not easy, especially when you ignored it for the better part of your life. And so I actually had to incorporate a couple of friends, specifically my best friend, Zachary Haas. There's his shout out, because he does a lot of the tech stuff behind all of our videos. But, it was really cool. For the first one that I did, I had to do a song for Japan Quartet for the NACO lunch break that I participated in. And for that one, I did it all on GarageBand, and it was a horrendous experience, mainly because I had to learn how to play bass trombone on a tenor and do everything in one take, because I never knew how to, do like the cuts and all that fun stuff. It was very revealing for my playing, and it allowed me to set different kinds of goals that I never thought I would have had to set. Like normally, if I'm in a quartet setting, specifically in school, like I tend to lead it from like first trombone or maybe even second, or I don't lead from second, but like I play mostly those parts, or I try not to lead from second, sorry. But it just kind of gave me a different idea of, how to support different roles, and it really forced me to think outside of the usual playing that I normally do. And these programs made it possible to do that. So it was cool. But technology sucks, but it's also great.
100%.
So what about actual performances? Like, I know we were talking about some ways we could recommend of like how to actually get out there and play during this crazy time. And I mean, speaking for myself, I decided this summer, nothing was happening. I was like, I want to play brass ensemble music. And so I just kind of asked a bunch of friends who all conveniently happen to be fantastic brass players in Toronto, like, would you be willing to do this if we observe the right safety protocols? And then we just started calling I started calling breweries to try to find like sponsorship or spaces, and we didn't end up really finding any sponsorship, but one brewery, Henderson Brewery, did give us just a bunch of free beer for after our shows. So that was great. I know, like Audrey and Megan, you were talking about outside of Ontario, some facilities that we don't know about that might be willing to help you make outdoor performances possible.
Well, like jazz musicians, like pop musicians, we tend to hustle and gigs is kind of part of the year-round practice of what we do. So when it became nice again, when the snow finally melted here and people started going outside, there were lots of different community leagues. Either there were specific community league initiatives, which is something we have in Alberta. Like all of our neighborhoods are like an association, and there's like funds there, and it can fund like events for your neighborhood or whatever for your community. And I think it's great. But lots of different communities were hosting concerts because everyone missed going out to concerts. So it would be simple things like in one neighborhood, there was a series actually for about 3 months where in an alley, and they would block off the alley. Everybody would bring a chair in the neighborhood, and behind somebody's garage who was hosting, we would put on, it would be like a two set concert. The best concert I did all of 2020, and the most fun gig I had in a long time, was in the parking lot of the the Jasper Place curling rink. It's a huge parking lot. People just like showed up like it was a folk festival, brought a chair. It was a beautiful day. Like I hired a sound guy and, a band. It's quite a large band. And it was sort of a pass the hat situation where we put a box out saying recommended donations of this much, but pay what you can. And it was a nice gig for everybody. It was paid. It was like one set because that's all we were allowed to do at the time. Our restrictions allowed. But basically the headline should be, people love music. People want to go see it. We should go offer it to them in different venues, since venues are going through quite a few restrictions themselves. A lawn, my backyard. There were lots of backyard concerts this summer. Anyway, we should bring it to them in different places.
Yes, I was going to say, even just when it was nice, and it is hard during the winter for sure, but, we were just playing quartets in parks, and all of a sudden you kind of look up from your CAC Fest and you're like, oh my gosh, there are a lot of people watching this. And then you apologize and then you move on. But just as Audrey said, like there's just so many people that would love to hear from us, so it can be as simple as playing in a park. It can be simple as playing in your backyard. But even to my students, I said, because, I really feel for students right now. A music degree during a pandemic is not a fun thing, right? And they're doing it with a brave face, and it's tough. But I just said, you're allowed to play with one person. Go play with at least one person. And if you need duets, if you need trios, I've done trios a bit too. Like you can still do it in a safe way, but that human connection that we've been talking about a little bit through this is so important. So don't think, that even just one more person is too small. That'll give you like a bit of spark, especially until we can get outside soon.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things, is just the inspiration, like lacking the inspiration. And all these ideas are ways to think about, I can, how can I be inspired to get to that point, right? And what were you going to say, Audrey?
This is a couple conversations ago, but duets, you don't need technological, like information to just have your phone record a voice memo of you playing part 1, and then you can play along with part 2. That was something I started doing as well. Just, you don't need to understand GarageBand to record a voice memo. Duets and quartets, you can do that way. Sorry, carry on.
You can find a pandemic buddy. I know some of my students have been doing that, where, you have that one buddy who you think is kind of safe, and you go in the garage and you play together at social distanced. Again, every province is different, but that's what some of my kids have been doing. Find a buddy, you just play duets with them. Find a couple friends, play outside. And as the weather gets nicer, of course, it's going to be easier, but find that one person you feel safe with. I know they've been making these masks, and Audrey, you were saying that they were doing that in Alberta now, where they have masks on their instruments.
Oh yeah, you're allowed to. Okay, the only place you're allowed to have be playing wind instruments right now is, right now is in a school setting, as long as everybody can be 6 feet apart and there are bell covers on all of the wind instruments. And the flutes need like a, what do you call it? A spit screen or whatever.
Yeah.
Flutes have to play into a spit screen. So yeah, if all of those regulations are met, you're able to play if you are a student. And to play outside, I believe is the same thing. But up until November, we were allowed to be presenting inside concert halls.
Wow.
I think it was like some percentage of audience. It had to be like a low percentage capacity of audience, and there had to be a guard on the stage, and horns needed to have covers on them. So a few restrictions, but like we were doing it up until November. My last live gig with the trio was November, and we were put into like, basically it was like a giant human fish tank where there was like plexiglass all around us and everybody had to be masked. Anyway, but it was great to play with people.
That's awesome. And so I guess that brings us to our next segment is in Ontario, we can't play together inside. We're missing that ensemble connection. So the mental health thing has been a huge issue for us. So how can we rebuild and how can we make it a positive experience for us after months of not playing together?
Good question.
I learned
Well,
something in there.
Disney.
Some of the ideas you've already put out is really good. And it's like sort of what we were talking about before, about taking it easier on yourself, baby steps, like find the buddy or just decide that you're going to try recording, just start small, recording with, one track with yourself on GarageBand and, and just hopefully that makes you feel better and you feel like you can do that next step.
Yeah, for me, I mean, in terms of, rebuilding my mental health, getting back into some sort of restorative practice, it really helped me, especially since I'm remote. Like I'm in Newfoundland right now and I'm supposed to be in Chicago. And I was in Toronto before that. So something that really helped me was actually creating a practice space within where I am right now. I've never really practiced here since high school. So it's been a couple of years and it's not the typical practice room feel. I'm in a basement. It's a low ceiling. It's like, so basically for me, it was how do I create a space that I feel safe and comfortable in and that I can be productive. So almost like recreating my school environment here where I am now. I don't know if you guys had any experience with that or what you guys did to restore your practice.
Well, I agree. Having a great space is so crucial. And I know that that's another reason why things are so hard for students right now. I actually just moved because my practicing apparently drove my neighbor crazy. But now I have an actual studio and it's been like really beneficial to my playing lately. So I can speak from personal experience on how much that makes a difference. Yeah, so definitely try to find some setup where you feel like you can play. And even if you have to play in a mute, like just somewhere where you can play a little bit every day, and hopefully you can get into a slightly larger space every once in a while, and just remember the joy of playing in a big room where your sound actually lives past your bell.
Yeah, I also really helped me and I guess I'm kind of crossing the line here by admitting this, but I really loved watching TV while I practiced, just to kind of get back into some, like maybe bridge the gap between practicing and just only watching TV for a while. But the idea behind it was that I had something going on in the background that would distract me from a lot of the critical thinking on my playing, knowing that I wasn't fully back into shape yet. And it kind of just having some sort of white noise in the background kind of, I don't know, that distraction helped me keep my mind clear from, saying like, oh, my tone is fuzzy, my articulation sucks, my range is gone, my endurance, you know what, there was a lot of things wrong, but the TV helped.
Yeah, just that comment about practice mutes and doing whatever you can just to play. I've had to take a full-time military job during the pandemic just to keep food on the table and all that good stuff. And I struggled to find time to play, right? And, I'm still teaching a full studio at the university and I don't want to, I want to be able to demonstrate some stuff. And so I just take my horn to work sometimes, and I eat very quickly, and then I use my time with a practice mute, and I just play studies, top to bottom, next, top to bottom, next, just to play. And it really, really helps. And I think we've mentioned it earlier, but just to tick that box and kind of make me feel like I've contributed to longevity and, future days kind of thing. And I was going to say one other thing. Sorry, I totally forgot. I'm blanking. Oh, I was just going to say, I remember just playing in a nice space. I was teaching a lesson one day, and I don't know if it was what they were playing, but every time they stopped, I was like, oh, no, it's like this. And I just started playing as loud as I think they were playing excerpts. That's why it was. But it was just so nice to blow, and just send that sound into a space, and it was just so fun. So even playing excerpts, I think Vanessa and I played some excerpts just a couple weeks ago. Oh, so nice. Just do things that make you feel good.
Yeah.
Oh, Rich, you want to go first, Rachel? Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to speak to the idea of like just feeling better. Like, a lot of us, and me in particular, can sometimes like dread. I've got to practice, and it becomes this chore that, and it's, obviously with this time, it's even more difficult. But what I found is that I always feel better after I do it. And I even feel better sometimes halfway through. And sometimes I feel better even towards the beginning. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Here I am. This is my thing. I'm doing this. I'm going to create this sound in this tiny basement studio that I've, moved all my kids' toys out of the way and, fixed up for myself. And then, this is going to be my little spot to put my sound in, but I always try to think about going beyond this little basement anyway, even though I can't, like, in terms of my energy coming out, and then it just feels like I'm creating something. I always feel better. So keep that in mind. Struggling to get to the practice room. Just start slowly, baby steps, and then just notice how you feel after. And then the next day when you don't want to do it because it just seems like a chore, say, remember how I felt good? It's like, you guys all go running. You feel great after you run, right? It's the same sort of therapeutic aspect.
Exactly. And I was going to say the same thing. I said, I approach playing like I do exercise because, again, I'm not a professional trombonist in the way these guys are. I play in a community orchestra, which is phenomenal, and I do get paid for it, which is great, but it's not my career. And so finding time to practice for me is often a chore. And now that I had a baby, I have a 9-month-old, there's no time in my day to practice. I have 0 time, which is just something else that's weighing down on me. And so I found a practice mute, and I set up a little studio for myself in the basement. I close the door when she's sleeping and she's 2 floors up, and I, pray to whoever that she doesn't wake up, and I use it as therapy. And I play long tones, and I play old studies that I played in university and Rochus and etudes, just so I can, find a little bit of Zen time. So even if you're not, trying to better yourself, use the trombone as Zen. It's been working for me. It's like yoga.
The number one thing that has helped get me through this pandemic and kept me playing is having a great therapist. And so I do just want to say, like, I hope that anyone that thinks that might be a good idea for them, go for it, because it's been really, really helpful for me to understand better, all aspects of my life. But when it comes to playing, we all really, I think we all do this, like we attach our identity to our playing, right? And how can you not? It's so personal. But we have to be able to look at it objectively and understand that, like, what happens if you have a bad day in the practice room, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean no one's going to like you anymore. It's, it doesn't mean your whole life is falling apart. And it's just so easy to go down that road really quickly. And it doesn't have to be a therapist. It can just be like having some other supportive people around you in your life. If you're somebody who is alone in your bubble right now, make sure that you have some friends and family that you can talk to about this stuff, and don't try to handle it on your own. You don't need to, because we're all going through this. And like, I know that I could call any one of these people that are in on this conversation, and that they would definitely have like similar issues to me and be totally willing to talk to me about it. And I think just talking about it can make you feel better. I think next step is to like have somebody who is like qualified to really help you break that stuff down and understand it, and then you can really get better and like not get better, I guess, but get better at separating those issues from your practice from the rest of your life. And it's never too late to like change your habits.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point.
I think on another note too, there are some of us, specifically students, I guess, and freelancers that, everyone keeps saying like, when the world opens back up, it'll all be better. We can all start performing again. And, there are some of us, me included, we won't go back to work. Right. So like jobs aren't there, performances aren't there. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that even though, yes, we are trying to stay motivated and we are trying to stay goal oriented throughout this, it's because we love it and we want to do it. But it's also totally and perfectly okay to say that, if you don't love it anymore, or if, your passion is now kind of causing you to not love it, or your mental health is suffering because of it, it's okay to not associate that with your identity anymore. And it's okay to allow yourself to not achieve these goals. Just to, play devil's advocate for a moment, because I think it is a really sobering thing that we've all had to grieve the loss of these performances and playing with each other. And, I think it'd be great to just acknowledge the other side of it. And, I don't know, that's kind of just where I am personally, because I know that, yes, I'm going to return to school eventually and do all these things, but at the same time, I'm still not performing to the extent that I was before. And I know that a lot of people are really feeling that absence even more than I am. So it's just to send that acknowledgement out there.
Yeah.
Man, that was well said.
Yeah.
Wow. I couldn't have said it better. That was awesome. And I think it needs to be said, right? I think there's a lot of guilt, I think, that's associated with some of this stuff. And it's hard to know where you think you're going to land, when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Or when it's going to be, right? So, no.
Yeah,
Really
I mean, Newfoundland was completely open, and I was playing in a jazz band, and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden we got a variant, and I'm back in the basement. So like it can change really fast. And I think it's just important to acknowledge that, we're all still going through it.
Sure. Absolutely. So,
But I also think that like more than any other time, this has shown how much the world craves live music. And yes, so goals, the important thing to know about setting goals is that your goals can always change. And that the work you've done to get to partway to your goal, it's not for nothing. Like it will help you whichever way your path ends up winding, right? And but for those of us who for everyone that just decides they have to stick it out, that they have to believe it's going to come back, like I don't know what you guys all think, but I do think that there's going to be live music still for sure. And maybe it'll even be different than ever. Maybe people will be more appreciative than ever.
Yeah, I definitely think it's coming back. And I think that, if you're into it, like keep chugging through it. But I'm totally with you. Like I'm optimistic, like I'm still here. I'm still fighting the good fight, but I don't know. There's a other side that I just wanted to acknowledge when I said that, but I totally agree with you. Like optimism is key to like getting through this, like look for better times. It will come back.
It's going to be very different, but it's going to come back, and hopefully come back with a vengeance, because people are craving it, as you guys did. Like, but did we even talk about what Vanessa and Neil did for when you were playing live outside your house at Christmas time?
That was so awesome.
That was my favorite thing of all Christmas season. It was amazing.
You mean our neighborhood band?
That's the one.
Yeah, well, that was a great thing to come out of COVID. We had this great little community vibe happening because we made friends with this family down the street, and they were a trombone player, but his main job is he's a playwright, but he also plays trombone. And then his two sons played trumpet and tuba, but they were both pretty new to the instruments at the time. And we ended up playing a new song every night for about 100 nights in a row and joined by a few other musicians in the neighborhood too. So that definitely kept me going and gave me a reason to leave the house once a day, which I'm very thankful for.
And you know what? The pandemic has brought out so many different opportunities for us. Like, had you not said yes to that and said yes to all these different opportunities, these new things that have come down your chute, and you would have just been, in your studio practicing for the next, I don't know, Mahler Symphony. But that was new and exciting and opened up some new venues and doors.
Well, thank you, Lauren. That really leads us right into our next topic. Our final chapter, I guess, on ways that you can stay motivated. And I think this is especially important as female brass players, is to say yes to things, because I think every opportunity we have to be out there in the public, being role models and showing people that, yes, girls can play trombone, because there's still some people that don't get it. I think we have to seize those opportunities and be out there doing it. So do it, even if you think you're not good enough or you're not ready, because guess what? You're never going to feel ready.
I think we should all just end this with one story that everybody said yes to something new that was totally outside their wheelhouse, and they loved it this pandemic. Who wants to start?
This table talk. Totally outside my comfort zone.
Oh yeah,
The first video.
Yeah, me too.
The first video that the orchestra wanted me to make to just demonstrate trombone to the youth orchestra kids, and it was the first video that I made, and I was just seeing myself on video, and it was really difficult. But now I'm glad I did a few after that, and I got better at them. Anybody else?
I mean, I had to sub in for Vanessa because she got dinged on her COVID app. And I hadn't played in a little while, like we've already been talking about. And I was like, oh no. But you're not going to say no. You're not, because that was one of the first gigs that I got. I was probably 6 months in, right? And my heart said no, but I said yes because, yeah, it got me practicing again. It got me playing. It was totally fun. And it was really amazing to have that opportunity for sure.
I said yes to creating a collab video for our summer camp that Vanessa and I teach at, the Faculty Wind Ensemble. We took a piece of music and I had to email the composer back and forth and learn how to make a click track and then send that out to everybody and edit the videos and mesh up the sound. I learned Audacity and Filmora 9 to make the video as well. This is I think she was 5 or 4 months old, my daughter. So doing all this with a 4-month-old was insane. And I didn't think I'd say yes to it, but I was so glad I did. It came out really, really cool. And I learned some new skills.
Click tracks are the worst part of online music. So bad.
I mean, I love metronomes, so it kind of feeds that love for me, but definitely I'd rather be playing live.
Creating the click track is the worst part for me.
Yeah, I haven't tried to do that yet.
Brutality.
Say yes to it, girlfriend.
And I think another cool thing about this pandemic is not that the pandemic is fun at all, but I think we've all said yes to something outside of music new. Like for me, I went on a canoe trip and I'd never been backcountry camping before. So that was kind of terrifying. As you're setting out, you're like, do I really know how to survive? And you just go for it and find out something new that you love to do. So I think for students in music, there's going to feel a lot of things in the next little while that are going to start up again. And you're going to feel I'm not ready. But I think you just understand that everybody's in the same boat as you.
Yeah, none of our chops are where we want them to be. And there's no amount of practice, at least for me, that's going to get it's going to get me in shape as much as just playing with people. So I had to accept that halfway through, this is where I'm at. I'm not going to get higher than that. This is my level for a while. And coming to terms with that was actually a positive experience, I think. So accept where you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really never know what opportunities can come out of when you just say yes to something. It's a really cool, powerful trick. It's not a trick, it's just you're saying yes, but it's cool.
Well, if we were to recap everything that we talked about today, I think it's kind of important. The number one thing we talked about was how to fall in love again with our playing. The second thing we talked about today was learning to play with yourself and learning to accept how you perform individually, and some different ways to create online music and motivation to practice. The third thing we talked about today was thinking outside your normal box and expanding new technologies and new programs and playing in different venues than you would have before. Number 4 was trying to improve our mental health and rebuilding after months of not playing, and different ways we could do that. And then the final thing we just talked about was start saying yes to stuff that you're uncomfortable with or you haven't done before, because the pandemic has thrown some crazy obstacles our way, and we need to be open to change.
Whoop.
Nailed it.
The teacher in
Thanks.
me, gotta say.
Thanks. You guys are awesome.
Well, it was awesome chatting with all of you about all of this stuff. And like for the people watching, we had a whole separate conversation where we were going to plan what to say. And even just doing that, like just getting together with you guys and chatting through all this stuff has been a big eye opener for me. And I've learned a lot from hearing all of your perspectives on this stuff.
I took my trombone out of the case. I might actually play it later.
Yeah, girl.
Yay. Yeah, we will.
Say yes.
I'm gonna say yes to it, man.
All right, this was fun. Thank you guys.
This was so fun.
Yeah. Thanks,
So hope you'll
everybody,
join us
joining.
for more Canadian Women's Brass Collective events. I think we have some more good stuff planned in the coming weeks. We're trying to represent musicians from across the whole country, different genres, all sorts of styles. And so we'd love to hear any suggestions that you have for future events as well.
And happy International Women's Day
Yes.
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Yeah.
bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Ciao.
Hey.